Hello everyone, I'm Jim George, the Director of Education for the Institute of Packaging Professionals, and welcome to another IoPP webinar. IoPP would like to thank its Sustainable Packaging Technical Committee, which is presenting today's event. The committee is one of 10 technical committees of IoPP. Our speaker today is Todd Van Gordon. He's a certified packaging professional, and he's the incoming chair of the Sustainable Packaging Technical Committee. Todd is also Senior Technical Associate, Sustainable Packaging, GSC-Global Packaging at the Colgate-Palmolive Company. Now today, Todd is going to talk about packaging lifecycle assessment tools. He will discuss how to satisfy the consumer using design for the environment, best practices, and database decisions with metric-based comparisons, as well as selecting sustainability indicators to narrow choices. Our goal today is to help you get the most out of your packaging sustainability program while also driving up profitability. Now, during the course of today's presentation, we encourage all the listeners to type your questions into the questions field on your screen and then submit them to us. At the conclusion of Todd's presentation, we will have a Q&A session and get to as many of your questions as we can. And by the way, if any of you listening in would like a copy of the slides, please contact me, Jim George, at jimg@iopp.org, and I'll be happy to send them to you. And this webinar is being recorded, so you can download it from our website, iopp.org, afterward. So at this time, I'm going to turn the floor over to Todd Van Gordon.
Thank you very much, Jim. I understand that there's a little lag time between my clicking and the slide, so you may see that. This is a slide with the CV information for me. I have attended Rutgers University, received my master's degree in food science with a thesis project in packaging. And I've worked in the packaging industry in terms of being a packaging scientist or a developer for 27 years, and have been in testing lab management, and currently I am developing and implementing the corporate strategy for Colgate-Palmolive for sustainability regarding packaging and materials and in all product categories in which we work. The agenda for today includes talking about definitions, the terminology that's used to talk about sustainability with regards to packaging, the sustainability landscape. What does it look like out there in terms of the environment and packaging? Packaging involvement in that sustainability, as well as talking about improving environmental impacts of packaging through design principles and choosing the right indicators for measurement. Also, we'll see a little bit of a sampling of corporate sustainability goals, which are available from websites of major corporations, just to get an idea of what people are doing, and talk some about the life cycle analysis tools that are available, and scorecards as well that can provide information about how your packaging is doing regarding the environment, the impacts on the environment. And also talk about the use of LCA metrics, how to collect the data, what to do with the data that's generated from the tools that we will talk about, and the decisions that you can make with these data. Probably most people know what sustainability is, but from the ground floor, the United Nations established a definition for sustainability as that development which meets the needs of today without compromising the needs of generations to come. That sustainability definition has three policies which are looked to for defining the sustainability of something, an operation, a procedure, a material. And there are three basic principles that talk to the sustainability issue, and they are social dimensions, which involve people, economic considerations, which for people like us in industry, if you were indeed in industry, it talks about performance, profit, whether you can make money or you will not make money, and environmental impacts. When you're doing something different, if you're making some decisions, you want to know what the environmental impacts are to the planet. I call it a three-legged stool, and that you need people, performance, and planet all holding up the platform of sustainability. And without one of those legs, sustainability is not very stable. Sustainable packaging has been defined by the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, of which Colgate was a member for some time, and they have listed it as being beneficial and safe and healthy for individuals and communities throughout its life cycle. It meets the marketing criteria regarding performance, cost, efficacy, and safety. It's sourced, manufactured, and transported using renewable energy and uses renewable and recycled sources of materials as much as you can. Sustainable packaging is manufactured using clean production techniques that are healthy for all people who come into, and animals and the environment who come into contact with it, and is healthy through the end of life scenario. It's physically designed to optimize materials. You get the most performance with the least amount of materials, and is effectively recovered at the end in biological or other means, so that it's going from cradle to cradle if possible. But at the end of it all, is packaging really sustainable? And the answer is no, and I agree with this. This is a position from the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. I agree with this in that it's really not completely sustainable. You always have losses. You always have off-spec materials. You always lose something and it has to be replaced, or the material itself through the recycling process becomes weak or breaks down through heat histories and that sort of thing. So it's not completely recyclable. It's not possible to have a completely sustainable material. Some of the definitions around sustainable materials are terms that you may or may not have heard of, like industrial scrap being used again, post-consumer recycled content, that's probably one that we're very familiar with, pre-consumer recycled content, which is something that's maybe traded between industries, and bio-based or renewable materials, which are materials that are generated from their natural resources or from a natural source and can be considered perhaps a crop, something that can be recycled or, produced every year through growing in the environment. Forest certified, meaning the fiber-based materials are sourced from places and with methods that are sustainable in harvest or in forestry. Recyclable, that's obvious. Reusable and refillable, understanding how a material can be used over and over again or created into something that's refillable. Compostable or biodegradable, this is a term that we've heard a lot about, and it involves the decay of biodegradable materials. The interesting thing about that is that you have to have methods to biodegrade a material. Photodegradable has had a lot of place about 20, 30 years ago when it was talked about how you get rid of litter in the sunlight and have it break down into smaller and smaller particles in which it will go back into the environment. And recycling rate is also a term which involves the recovery, the amount of recovery of materials. recyclability is an important aspect in that you design so that it can be recycled into the system. The global landscape out there looks like this. There are concerns about global warming. Certainly there are lots of concerns about the temperature of the Earth going up and what that does to the weather, the sea level rising. Also the energy use is important in terms of sustainability. We want to conserve our energy use because most of the energy we are using is not replaceable. Water use is very important these days. It's getting to be very important to conserve water, maybe not around where you live, but there are many places in the world that do not have readily available sources of water, or they are becoming scarcer. And environmental degradation is important to understand. Social aspects, something that packaging people may not be too familiar with or understand how that could be involved. I can explain that a little bit later. And economics are important, overshadowing everything we do, and particularly influential these days with the recessions that are going on in various continents. Packaging's involvement in the sustainability movement are influenced by the awareness that the customer and the consumer have about how we utilize our valuable resources. When someone has a very visible package in their presence in their kitchen, they go to the store, they buy something, they bring it home, and they use it up, and the act of discarding it into the garbage or into the trash is a reminder every day that there is a material being lost. There's a functional loss. There's some guilt around throwing something away that has a life that could be used again. And recycling is not yet what it could be in many places in the United States, at least. Some other places, like Europe, recycling is fairly well established. But there is some work that needs to be done to improve the sustainability by improving our recycling. So that's an important issue. Also, as we are in a bad economic situation, there has been more focus on EPR, which is the extended producer responsibility fees, which have been present in Europe for 15+ years. Packaging has been and continues to be a priority for environmental groups, NGOs. These are non-government organizations, Sierra Club, many groups that they're aware of and putting pressure on companies to do something about their packaging. Consumers are aware and proactively challenge the need for packaging. You may even have experienced some angry letters from some of your customers. And Europe has the lead with the EU directive legislation. They have been using the recycling fee structure for some time, as I mentioned earlier. Canada has one that has been in place for some time called the Blue Box. And recently, Latin America and Asia have been passing legislation directed at extended producer responsibility, like Brazil and Mexico. Japan, Taiwan, and Australia have also passed some legislation around that. And the U.S. Will follow. I'm very sure that they will follow with state-specific legislation on extended producer responsibility. I think California was poised to do that before the recession hit, but they were delayed. And Vermont has passed extended producer responsibility model legislation as well. The retail buyer decisions may be affected by sustainability performance, and they may be swayed to ask their suppliers, what are you doing to make this product more sustainable? Biopolymers are gaining ground because there's pressure to compost and an opportunity to be renewable, or using renewable materials is a great story around a package. The Federal Trade Commission is also getting involved in rewriting their claims for making label declarations around sustainability. There has been some greenwashing, and we would like to, government as well as industry associations would like to reduce the amount of greenwashing that has been going on. It hurts us all. In the future, the industry, meaning the consumer goods companies and others, have gotten together through a new association called Ameripen to control the environment around extended producer responsibility, to be lobbying for improvements in the recycling systems, understanding what can be done. Changing in the recycling operations is an important aspect of Ameripen's efforts. And looking at standards development with the ISO and other organizations so that our nomenclature and measurement reporting systems are standardized, made universal, so that we can cross-talk. Raw material costs are going up, so we need to be selecting the right materials or designs to control, at least minimize the impacts to our profits. And there are positive and negative effects on innovation with raw material costs increases. Every 2 years, the Environmental Protection Agency puts out a report on the municipal solid waste, and it's not much different in the latest report in that the containers and packaging segment of the municipal solid waste is about 30%, and it holds pretty much in that percentage with each report. So how can we affect that portion of the municipal solid waste to reduce it? Designing for the environment is a very good way to push the peanut forward a bit and go the right direction toward reducing the impact on the environment, reducing the amount of material that's used. And it's done by establishing a project scope, understanding how big this project is. You need to understand who your stakeholders are, what your organization wants, and define the scope of the project to make a sustainability improvement. You select a functional unit of interest, and usually a primary package is the first thing you think about. And also, the secondary packaging can be, and tertiary packaging can be all part of the test or the design for the environment. And normalization against a CMUM, which is a consumer meaningful unit of measure, is a very important thing, so that you know that when you make a comparison that what you're seeing is real. You select appropriate indicators, a list which is shaped by goals, objectives, policy, and strategy. Indicators are a measure of something that can impact the environment in some way. You assess the environmental impact of the current pack that you're concerned with. You consider the sustainable principles. I call them the 7 R's. They've been out for a long time. You may be familiar with them. And you use a tool to calculate sustainability impacts of making choices within the 7 R's. And you compare the current package that you have to a new design idea. And with the output from the testing of these ideas, you generate a report, and the metrics are listed on the report with the indicators, and you determine whether there is a significant difference between the report and between the baseline starting material and the new idea, and make recommendations for forward action. In the design for the environment, you need to manage the expectations. a mission statement is pretty important. If you don't know where you're going or how to get there, it certainly makes life difficult. And it should be created on your organization's vision, your culture, the commitments you'd like to make, the type of business you're in, and the plan that you have with your stakeholders. Your stakeholders are a list of those people who will be affected by design changes, and the list is surprisingly long. If you stop to think about, if you make a change with a package, who will be affected by this change? It's important to list those people and to review with those people, and modify any operations that are necessary or systems, and agree that the system that you're choosing, or say the design that you're thinking about, can be achievable. And you create a standard operating procedure for doing the work so that everyone is doing the same thing. You set boundary conditions so that you are not taken down to a place where you keep going and don't look back. You have to be sure that you are not going beyond certain boundaries, because life cycle analysis or doing sustainable measurement can be a very long process, and it needs to be limited. You need to provide detailed report for internal consumption if you're using a tool with limited outputs, and we'll talk a little bit about internal versus external consumption a little bit later. The 7 R's provide a great list of places, or let's say principles that you can get ideas from for making sustainable improvements to packaging. You probably are familiar with most of these, and they're pretty simple. Remove is eliminating the unnecessary packaging components or layers of packaging that really don't have a significant function. You can reduce the materials that you've got to a point where they are optimized. You can reuse the packaging materials or refill the component, the primary package perhaps. And recycle. You be sure that you use recycled materials in your product, and design your package so that you can have it recycled. Basically, you need to support the recycling industry to get sustainability going. Also, revenue is important. If you don't have the money to expand your business or to market the product because you have chosen a very expensive design, then you're not going in the right direction. So revenue is one of those legs I talked about. And renew, using renewable materials that come from living organisms, plants, or animals, ecosystems, and can be regenerated. And the one that a lot of people may not think about, but I think it's important, is the research or read R, where you're constantly looking at the media and understanding what's going on out there regarding materials and designs, doing your research so that you can make good choices for the future. Now, indicators are important to choose so that you are framing the information that you will be putting in and getting out of a measurement process. And the indicator is shaped by your goals, your objectives, the policies within your company or your organization, and your strategy for the future. The list of indicators you can choose, and remember these are things that can affect the environment in one way and can be measured, come from a master list which is very large. And you want to be able to narrow your choices down to maybe 4 or 6 to make it easy to do and understandable for decision making. This is a list that came out of an effort by the Global Packaging Project from an organization in Belgium. And you can see it's very, very long, and it's kind of scary. And so there are some things on here which you may see which you would not recognize as being an indicator for packaging development. But all of them have some influence on the design of a package or the choice of a process. And things like forced labor or compulsory labor, you would think that's important. But if you've ever produced a component in a country that has not very strict labor laws, you could be concerned about the sustainability of your business, knowing whether there's forced labor. And there are other, perhaps a little more obscure indicators on this list that you might consider if you were doing a different kind of business, for instance. For consumer goods companies, there's a shorter list, and they are things like material use, how much material are you using, the energy you use to make it, or the energy used to make the raw material, the amount of water that's used, the material health. Are there any toxic materials that are being given off to the environment, either through to the air, land, or water? Clean production techniques that don't threaten your workers, transportation, use of energy through transportation, the cost either economically or environmentally, social impacts, and community impacts. This is a list which is sort of an eye chart. I apologize for that, but it has the indicators column and a metrics column. And I like to think of indicators of the what. And what are you concerned about? Indicators, packaging weight, for instance, material waste, virgin packaging material fraction. And on the right column, metrics. These are the how much of the what's you see in that column. The units of measure for things like water consumption can be cubic meters of fresh water, or toxic emissions can be kilos of vinyl chloride equivalents per packaging component. These are pretty important to the kinds of things that we do as packaging engineers. Well, what are other companies doing? And if you go onto websites for corporations, you can dial into sustainability and look closely at packaging or product sustainability efforts and the claims that companies make. Nestle here shows that one of the important sustainability indicators for the work that they do, the developments they make, are water, the use of materials. They're concerned about reducing the solid waste, influencing the environment, the massive greenhouse gases that are given off, and cumulative energy demand, which affects fossil fuels and the use of non-renewable resources. Another company that you may be familiar with is the one I work with. I work for Colgate, and we are concerned about water usage, post-consumer recycled material use. We would like to be able to put as much recycled material into our packaging as possible, and solid waste generation, climate change, and cumulative energy demand. Heinz Corporation has 8 specific goals. Only 4 are involved in this particular reference with the packaging issues, and reduce energy consumption, and reduction of packaging by 15% through the introduction of alternative packaging materials, reduction in transport, and 15% energy is going to be sourced from renewable materials in the future. I don't know what the year is. Oh, 2015. For Bristol-Myers Squibb Corporation, in 2015, they've claimed that they're going to reduce their packaging by 5%, expand principles of sustainability, with the suppliers. You may have sensed that if you were a supplier, you may have already been asked to do that sort of thing already with your customers. Reduce total energy use and total water use. For Walmart, they have many sustainable strategies and goals in the next years. One of them on this page, or let's say one page of their indicators list in the U.S. eliminating PVC from the supply chain, which is not easily done. The global packaging, or in global supply chain, reducing the packaging by 5% globally by 2013, and being packaging neutral by 2025. And also reduce the weight of global plastic shopping bags, perhaps getting rid of them. Well, there are two general categories of tools that could be used to assess the sustainability of packaging and components. And you could say that they are life cycle tools and scorecards. A life cycle assessment tool is a systematic cradle-to-grave process that evaluates the environmental impacts of something, a product, a process, a material, and draws on information from an index, a list of indicators that can be used to add up the impacts on things like the energy demand or the effect on water, the toxic generation of materials, etc. If you'd like to know more about life cycle analysis, these sources, these references are good to check out. And the EPA has a good site to explain LCA. And I heartily recommend this book, Life Cycle Analysis for Mere Mortals by Rita Schenck. That is a very simple primer on LCA science and what to do and what not to do. An LCA tracks a product's environmental impact, and it can be done all the way from digging in the dirt or drilling for oil all the way to the end of life, which could be landfill or incineration. And there are many indicators that are found to support this work, and this is a list of some of them. CymaPro from the Netherlands, United States Life Cycle Index, EcoInvent is a European important LCI list. Gabi, which is German, US EPA has their own list of indicators, and United Nations and others. A scorecard uses metric data from the LCA to assign a value to a collection of impact categories and makes it simpler for comparisons and decision making. And some of the things that you could see are go, no go, like a traffic light, green, orange, red, up or down arrows, a score, range, and you may have seen things like took 20,000 cars off the road or prevented cutting down 1,500 trees, and these are coming from scorecards. To do life cycle analysis on packaging materials and components, it is important to understand that a full LCA can be very scary and very expensive. It can take months or years to do and cost many thousands of dollars. And if we were to do a full LCA on every packaging material or component that we were trying to design or understand what the sustainability was, we'd never get done. So it's important that we have a streamlined tool, and the need for the streamlined tool has been satisfied. There are applications that you can buy or access which are user-friendly for readers, users, and managers. You can put in information easily and get the outputs easily, and as an easy data set comparison in the report, or you can use them to make comparisons perhaps offline. There is a short turnaround in that once you get used to doing these things, it can be 20 minutes, 30 minutes, or less. And they're economical and multi-site accessible if you have a number of engineers that want to work on them in various places and share data. How do you select a tool that fits your need? You can go to research or to trade shows and look in the periodical literature, and also search the web for suppliers of LCA tools. But you also need to know your objectives for your project. What things do you want to measure? What ideas do you have that you're going to make changes on? And how do you measure what the impacts will be on the environment? And also understand the cost parameters. Some of the licenses, there are licenses and recurring fees for light or streamlined LCA tools. And you have to understand the information technology systems that are resident in your business in terms of hardware, software, hosting internally, externally, the resources that you have available to you to accommodate a tool. And also design, I think it's a good idea, let's put it that way, to design and distribute a survey. If there are many suppliers that you are aware of and you want to get information from to make a decision, it's a good idea to use a survey in either by face-to-face or over the phone or in web-based format. SurveyMonkey is an example of that. And once you get the information back from suppliers, you can review with your colleagues to see if the characteristics of each of the tools fit your need. Here's a list of some of those items that you might want to consider surveying if you're talking to suppliers about tools. There are business review items, design, tool use, inputs and outputs, and training programs. Do they support a training program? Will you have help desk? And what are the costs for getting up and running, as well as recurring costs, annual fees and such? Here's a short list of some of the tools that are available to you. One coming from Australia called Picket, or Piquet if you're French, but it's for the Australians, it's Picket. It's been customized for use by Nestle, Marks & Spencer, L'Oreal, and others, and is a business tool that's used for rapid environmental impact assessments. I've been given a demonstration of this particular tool. It's quite good and has a sliding scale price on seat licenses, and the contact information is at the bottom of the screen. Another tool comes to us from the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. If you remember, you have access to Compass. It's not a very complex or expensive application, and you have the capability of making individual assessments that you can compare manually between reports. It's a low price, and you might consider talking to the SPC about getting a copy for yourself. Another one comes to us from Dow Chemical. It's available to customers interested in assessing the environmental footprint of their components. And interestingly, it's a free tool. You can get access through their technical service representative, or someone who calls on you from Dow can get you access onto it. I'll talk a little bit about that later in terms of inputs and outputs. I have some screenshots. Another tool comes to us from Earthshift in the U.S. It's an online tool called Package Smart. And it allows packaging designers and managers to evaluate the multiple selections, or let's say you can put one component next to the other. It's been developed with the aid of packaging engineers and is web-based, as I mentioned. It uses the U.S. Lifecycle Index and EcoInvent databases. There are free 2-week trials available, and you can go on to www.earthshift.com and also contact Melissa Hamilton in Vermont to get more information about their tool. Another tool comes to us from a combination effort of the ECRM company and EPI. ECRM developed the software that has been used for Walmart's scorecard. And EPI has been working with ECRM to develop a data management tool for large organizations and works through bills of materials and all the packaging specifications that go along with that to produce sustainable comparisons, sustainable impact comparisons. And the interesting thing about this particular tool is that it allows for the calculation of extended producer responsibility obligations in terms of fees, particularly in Europe and other places where the EPR fees are going into place, things like places like Canada. And when or if EPR comes to the States, it is a place you'd probably want to go if you didn't want to do manual collection of data to understand what your obligations are in terms of recycling fees. And Victor Bell in Rhode Island, his contacts are on the bottom of the screen if you're interested in that. The ECRM program, which supports the packaging scorecard, the Walmart packaging scorecard, also has a use in that you can model your items that you have resident on a Walmart scorecard and see what design changes will do to the impact on the environment. And David Schaefer is the contact if you need to talk to someone about getting the modeling software. Additional tools out there are from 5 Winds, or PE International has a Gabi iReport, which is a streamlined tool for packaging. They also do sustainability measurements for other kinds of materials, for instance, products. And here's the contact for PE International. They are the parent company to 5 Winds. Earthstir is one that you find on the web, QuantaSuite. And Prey Consultants in the Netherlands is a company that can do full LCA work, either contract or supply tools. And this company looks at the social aspects of sustainability. Remember, I showed you the child labor indicator in a previous slide. If you need to look at various countries where you might want to do business, this is a place to go to see what sort of concerns there may be out there regarding the supply chain and packaging. This is there are 3 slides coming up here, and they are the screenshots on Dow Chemical's SEIC sustainability measurement tool. And this shows a bag in-box cereal versus a stand-up pouch of cereal. Is a normalization. There's a normalization in terms of the net weight of the package. In this case, 11 ounces on one side and 12 ounces on the other, which without normalization, you wouldn't be able to make a very good decision about whether one pack is better than the other. So that may come down to the impact of a material per ounce, for instance. So you would be putting in what it is, the weight, and the output, you would enter the packaging materials by, in this case, %, and you would be looking at the results that come out at the other end, and you would be able to compare packages with the different choices that you have made, in this case, bag-and-box and stand-up pouch, and it gives you a comparison with the % less than or more than in terms of the indicators, and they're the fairly limited list of materials under the weight, the energy, the greenhouse gas production, and the consumer solid waste. Walmart scorecard, I won't take too much time with this. You may be familiar with that, but there are input screens for the Walmart scorecard, and output gives you scores as well as information around the climate change, the fossil depletion, human health, water depletion. These can be transferred to Excel spreadsheets, and you can take it from tabular to graphical form. So it's important at the end of all your work is to make a report, and you should include lots of detail on a report, including the background, the scope of the project, who was involved and when, the objectives. You need to show the data that you put in and the data you get back out in terms of the tables and graphs. And what is your assessment? What happened? How do you judge the value of the design change and making a recommendation to your stakeholders? Here's an example of graphical results. A Package Smart report looks like this. This happens to be 3 different packages that Colgate had in Europe, and you can see that the orange package represented by orange in the middle is less impactful on the environment than the other 2. Here's one that was developed or generated from the Gabi report system, and it shows the impact on the global warming potential, the greenhouse gas production levels with primary, secondary, and tertiary packaging, stacked bar, showing that in this case a form-fill-seal pouch is less impactful than a 2-liter high-density polyethylene bottle. And if you transfer the tabular data into an Excel spreadsheet, you can generate your own graphs that could look like this, with the indicators shown across the bottom and perhaps a % change or reduction from the baseline. It's important to understand your baseline, understand and measure, let's say measure so you understand your baseline package against the new design idea. How do we use the reports? Light LCA information should be used for internal use only because it has exactly that, not a whole lot of stuff behind it. It doesn't have all of the information that is rolled up into the results. And if you're for internal use, you'd say, well, 20% change in metric results is considered significant. And that's generally understood by the tool makers that that's a good action or a go, no-go measurement. And if you're using full LCAs, you can use the results for external communications, but you always want to have an expert, a third party verify, who doesn't have a special interest in what you're trying to do, but has the ability to give a non-biased opinion. If you're using it for competitive challenges or advertising, full LCA is a better way to go, not light LCA or streamlined LCA. So I have covered the definitions that are involved with sustainability, what it looks like out there regarding our impact or the packaging design or packaging development activities we have on the sustainability. We've looked at packaging involvement in this sustainability issue, and what improvements, or how can we make improvements to our impact and from a packaging standpoint, either in design, through tools, choosing the right indicators to measure, and using the 7R principles. Also, understanding a bit about what corporations are doing regarding making declarations around sustainability regarding packaging. An explanation of 2 types of tools that can be used to measure your efforts to make design improvements, how to select them, and what to do with the information. Also, using the lifecycle analysis metrics, the data that has been collected, what do you do with it so that you can make database decisions? And the idea that there is a current sustainability symposium or summit in Durban, South Africa, I offer this little comic that, you know, what if this is all just a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? It's probably worth it, and we should put our efforts against making packaging more sustainable. So with that, I'll turn this back over to Jim, and how do we get that back? Chris, here we go. Okay, go ahead, Jim.
Todd, a lot of really great information there. Thanks for a really strong presentation. And we are going to get into our Q&A session now. And again, all of you listening out there, just a reminder that if you have a question you'd like to ask, please type it in and submit it to us. And we'll get to them, as many of them as we can. And those that we don't get to, if you're really dying to ask Todd the question, you can email me at jimg@iopp.org afterward, and I'll forward the questions on to Todd, and he can handle it from there. So let's get right into it. Todd, first question for you. What are the limitations of the free life cycle assessment tool from Dow Chemical compared to others?
Well, the SEIC looks at materials only, and there's not a lot of treatment, or let's say an understanding of index data regarding the process that you choose to make a particular component. And if you need to select a particular process, it's not available. You cannot save your work on a website. You have to print it out and hold it separately. And if you need to have regional indicator data, you cannot select that. It's just U.S. And if you're working in Asia or Europe, you may want to have a different tool that has access to different indicators. There are some indicators that are not there that you may be interested in, depending upon your stakeholders. Things like toxicity, for instance, or acidification potential, or impact on the aquatic environment. So depending upon your need, if you wanted to keep it very simple, then the SEIC tool perhaps would be helpful for you.
Okay. Another question. How do you know what to include in the scope of a project?
When you are looking at a project, or let's say a particular component or package that you want to change, you can select a narrow range of activities that would cause an impact, or a broader range. And they go all the way from the production of raw materials, through transportation, through component making, more transportation, the finishing factory, more transportation, warehousing, all the way to the consumer, and then on to the end of life. And if you were only concerned with a primary package change, then you don't think that anything else will change, then you can slice out that piece of it and only look at that without searching out for information that is really going to be repeated between the two packages. Also, it's important to know, or if you discover that there is really not much data connected to the choices that you're making, then that part of the scope should be eliminated, or let's say you don't choose to look at that particular section of supply chain.
Okay. I've got a question from a number of you asking about the slides being available for this presentation. You can email me as well, jimg@iopp.org, and I'll be happy to send those along to you. So moving along here, Todd, another question. What sort of computing requirements should I be concerned with when considering an LCA tool?
There are, depending upon the size of your company, the type of IT organization that you have, you may need to be aware of internal versus external hosting. If you have the ability to bring it in-house, it would cost less per year in terms of online charges. Certainly, the degree of security that you would like to have is important, and the hardware, software capabilities, whether you want to have it broadly based regarding many seats in different places, different factories, or within your office, needs to be considered. The cost certainly is a big issue. There are many factors that are involved in the choice from an IT standpoint.
Okay. Another listener asked, Todd, can you elaborate on Ameripen? Who should be members and what will they be trying to accomplish?
The Ameripen has been established within the last year with some major corporations, consumer goods companies, and others. And I'm not sure what the second part of that question was, Jim. Help me.
What will be required? What are they going to be doing going forward?
They're going to be looking at the technology around recycling, how it can be improved, and also interface with government agencies so that good decisions can be made regarding legislation, so that industry is not just told what they have to do, but they have a very active part in guiding those decisions by government.
Okay. Can you clarify and or qualify packaging neutral in terms of sustainability?
Well, packaging neutral, there are some various definitions on what packaging neutral is, and from my opinion, I guess, is that it balances the amount of packaging that is coming in versus going out, or let's say it reduces or eliminates waste to landfill or waste going out the back door, so that you are trying to recycle everything you possibly can so that nothing goes out the back door to the end of life. The packaging neutral is something to work toward. I don't know whether it's achievable or not.
Okay. Any thoughts you can share on Sustainable Minds LCA?
Sustainable what LCA?
Sustainable Minds.
As in M-I-N-D?
NDS.
Sustainable Minds.
Perhaps that's a question whoever asks that, they can follow up with me and clarify, and I can send it along to you.
Okay.
Let's try another one here. How do you work LCA into your everyday job?
Well, I am challenged to justify why we would do certain things, and also I like to, or not like to, but I've been asked to measure certain changes in packaging materials and how they would impact the environment. And also, if someone is making a decision in a business sense, I am supporting those decisions by presenting information about the design changes that are proposed. And that would fit into the plans for moving forward with new products or design changes to existing products rather. It's important to know where your product is in terms of developing baselines, and that is a big challenge, since up until recently this tool has not been available, at least to me, so I am spending lots of time establishing baselines so that we know where we're starting from when we want to make sustainability improvements.
Okay. Here's a really good one. Companies that don't have internal capability to do LCA, where do they go for help?
There are many consultants that will help you with doing this work, and I would say the first thing to do is to contact those companies that were listed in this presentation. Some of them actually do contract service and can also direct you to people who do that as well using their tools.
Okay. We've got time for a couple more here. What LCA does Colgate-Palmolive use?
We are currently using Gabby iReport.
Okay. And another listener asks, why didn't you mention the SavvyPack tool from Allied Development Corporation? Is there a particular reason?
No. In fact, the Dow Chemical one is backed up by what is it, SavvyPack? I think Allied Development is, let's see here. I can't back up.
Hold on a second. Whoop.
Tell me when to stop.
Okay.
Which side are we looking for?
You're looking for Dow, the Dow icon, the Dow logo rather, at the end of the near the end. I have talked to Allied.
There you go.
Let's see here. Oh. I think Allied actually is the platform underneath this particular project. I have spoken with Allied. I had done a survey with Allied. They are quite good. They have their own database regarding packaging machinery, which I have not seen anywhere else. I also believe they have the capability of doing a cost analysis regarding design decisions. So depending upon your need, Allied Development could be a very good tool for you. It's an impressive tool.
Okay. Let's end with one final question here, Todd. Have you heard much about the potential LCA impact of moving from pressure-sensitive labels to direct screen printing with non-toxic inks?
No, but that's a good project. If you're going to do that, getting an LCA tool in place or having someone do the test for you would be an interesting exercise. If the inks are not presenting a threat to the recycling stream or to the wash water outfall, that would be a good project to talk about. Yeah, I don't know what the impacts are.
Okay. Well, Todd, appreciate your time, and this concludes IoPP's webinar and life cycle assessment, and I'd like to thank once again Todd Van Gordon and the Sustainable Packaging Technical Committee for making this webinar possible. And again, if you would like to receive today's presentation, or you would like me to forward on questions we didn't get to that I can forward on to Todd, give me an email at jimg@iopp.org. So thanks everyone for attending, and have a great day.
Thank you.